Cycling World Cup.
Die kan natuurlijk heel goed straks, als hij nog een beetje benen heeft, Gilles Cabello. Na 62 kilometer, het is allemaal opgenomen nog hoor, wat we nu laten zien. Garate voor Matthäus Nozal en Tira Longo. Dat is een renner van de Fasso Bortolo ploeg. En als je omhoog gaat, dan rij je ook wel eens naar beneden. En dat gebeurt dus hier. En dat gaat vrij hard. De wegen hier rond San Sebastian zijn prima. Het is echt een hele mooie infrastructuur. Mooie geasfalteerde wegen. Het loopt allemaal goed. Fietsen is hier in Baskeland een heel belangrijke sport. We hebben hier natuurlijk de twee voetbalploegen in San Sebastian en Bilbao die een heel puur Baskisch element hebben, geen buitenlanders hebben. Maar het fietsen hier ook. Je hebt hier dus die Euskartel-ploeg, dat zijn allemaal Basken die hier en waar Echeverria van onze ploeg waarschijnlijk naartoe gaat. We krijgen hier een beeld in het peloton. We zien Nicola Bo Larsen en we zien de nummer 1. Francesco Casagrande die vandaag een trio kan scoren. Dat wil zeggen hij heeft de voorgaande 2 afleveringen van deze koers heeft hij gewonnen. En vandaag, hij schijnt heel erg goed te zijn. Onze Italiaanse collega's riepen dat hij heel goed was, Casagrande.
Ja, we hebben hem vorige week natuurlijk al gezien in de klassiek van Hamburg. Waar hij tweede werd. Helemaal niet op zijn terrein. En toch in de finale weg wist te rijden met de latere winnaar Misalia.
Het blijft een wat mistig beeld. Het is net of er zo'n mooie heilige lucht hangt. Dat is ook zo hier. Het is niet koud. Maar die regen ja, doet toch iets met je. Dat zullen de renners ook gevoeld hebben. Hoewel, als je flink doortrapt, dan wel weer warm. Hier die Deen Larsen. Die ook al zo'n geintje aan de hand heeft gehad dit jaar. Ik meen, voor de Ronde van Vlaanderen was hij eraan. Tristan Hofman niet gestart in de ploeg van Memme Ricard. Een hele Scandinavische ploeg met 8 Denen en 1 Zweed. Martin Rietzel. Lotto ploeg die verleden jaar met Verbrugge tweede werd in deze koers. Verbrugge die toen net tekort kwam tegen Casagrande. Een van de laatste was die weerstand kon bieden. Hier gaan we weer naar de heer Bettini toe. Die wel een heel klein fietsje rijdt. Maar ja, dat is die 1,61 of zo. Adriano gaat van de kop af. Dan komt Jan. Secchiari is van de Seiko-ploeg. Dit is Matthäus van Polti. De Groot, onze landgenoot, Brammetje. Deze zien we zelden, dat is Travasoni, dan van Kessel. Parmejo van de Relax-ploeg, dat is de Fuan Labrada, die zie je terug in de Ronde van Spanje. Astorloa van Mercatone Uno. Tira Longo. En dan weer Garate. Dan Nozal. Dan hebben ze bijna gehad. En dan hebben we deze nog. Dat is Rastelli. Ja, van Figueroa. Dan hebben we het hele zootje gehad wat voorop reed. 2 landgenoten dus. Die van Kessel, die heeft wel aanleg voor heuvelachtig terrein, hè?
Ja, dat is een talent wat betreft het klimmen. Hij heeft dat bij de profs nog niet echt kunnen laten zien. Hij heeft wel al 2 keer de Ronde van Italië gereden, maar dat is dan toch weer iets te veel van het goede. Maar op dit soort beklimmingen, dus van een kilometer of 5 en niet al te steil, kan hij goed uit de voeten. Maar hij heeft duidelijk vandaag de opdracht gekregen om in het begin op te letten, met een groep mee te gaan. Net zoals de Groot. zijn ook allemaal veel jonge renners die in die kopgroep zitten. Buiten Bettini en Jan. Xavier Jan zijn het eigenlijk onbekende namen. Allemaal neoprofs, Spaanse neoprofs veel die dus opgelet hebben in het begin, meegesprongen zijn. Maar het is te verwachten dat daarachter ploegen als Finicalora, Lotto, die waren al aan het rijden in het begin van de wedstrijd. Dit gaat wel zullen dichten.
Ja, het is een beetje een proeftuin, deze eerste grote lus in deze klassieker. Je ziet echt dat heel veel ploegen van die jonkies hebben meegestuurd. Van ga maar, leer het vak maar op deze manier. Je weet dat je straks teruggehaald bij de JSKBL. Maar kijk maar hoe ver je kan komen. En dat dan zo'n Bettini, hier rijdt hij vooraan, dat hij mee is, ja, dat is misschien toevallig.
Ja. Dat is wel verrassend, want je zou zo'n man verwachten echt in de finale. Ja. Maar daar hebben ze bij Mappai nog wel meer mensen voor. Ze hebben nog Frère, ze hebben nog Bartoli. Dus daar hebben ze nog veel ijzers in het vuur.
Higueras schakelde hier niet uit, was verleden jaar goed hier in de finale. En kijk, geen meter vlak, hè. Het blijft maar draaien en keren. Maar allemaal over goed bereidbare wegen. Zuurstofrijk, lekker wel. Lekker fietsen. Je hebt dus de Hamburg klassieker gehad verleden week. Italia wint voor Casagrande. En weer komt Zabel tekort. Ik weet niet of je het zo mag zeggen, maar hij kwam in ieder geval, vond ik, duidelijk tekort in het afmaken. En eigenlijk mag je dat zijn ploeg aanrekenen. Dus vandaag heb je San Sebastian en dan over een week heb je Zurich. Dat zijn de 3 augustus klassiekers. Klassiekers tussen aanhalingstekens. In ieder geval wereldbekerwedstrijden. Kijk, deze Clásica in San Sebastian die bestaat zo'n 20 jaar nu. Daar werd een beetje schamper over gelachen in de beginjaren. Toen won er ook een Bask 2 keer achter elkaar, Legarreta. Maar zo langzamerhand heeft het wel vorm gekregen. Toen Indurainen ging winnen. Armstrong heeft hem gewonnen. Dat zijn toch namen. Casagrande 2 keer achter elkaar. Bult. Dit lijkt me Baskisch voor direct.
Ja.
Jij hebt hier gekoerst.
Ja, nee, dat klopt. We zien beelden uit de helikopter. En, dit zijn directe beelden.
Zo. Zuzeneko Irudiak. Je kan er niets van maken werkelijk. In ieder geval nog 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 man bij elkaar. Er is dus wel zo hier en daar iemand gesneuveld. Voor de wielrennerij heb je dus nog vandaag. Morgen is er nog een koers hier in de buurt. Dan gaat iedereen zich een beetje klaarmaken voor Zurich. Dan krijg je de Ronde van Nederland. Je krijgt nog een wedstrijd in Spanje. Een meerdaagse wedstrijd in Spanje. En dan krijg je 3 grote koersen in Italië. En dan begint de Ronde van Spanje. De Ronde van Spanje die een groot deelnemerschap krijgt. Onder andere met Jan Ullrich. En met mensen die zich willen voorbereiden op de Olympische wegwedstrijd. En na de Vuelta, waar overigens de Rabobank ploeg voor afgezegd heeft. Na de Vuelta gaat een groot gedeelte van de coureurs naar Sydney. Om dan direct terug te keren. Direct na de wedstrijd daar. En dan krijgen we nog het wereldkampioenschap in Plouay. Dat wordt voorafgegaan overigens door de één na laatste wereldbekerwedstrijd, Parijs Tour. En na de wereldkampioenschappen is er dan nog de Ronde van Lombardije. En dan pas is het seizoen gedaan. De kopgroep met Bram de Groot nog steeds hier erbij. En Van Kessel heb ik ook nog gezien. Rijdt met een voorsprong. Het regent flink. De voorsprong is ons niet bekend. Het moet in ieder geval minder dan 3 minuten 35 zijn. Maar wat betreft de communicatie zwemmen we een beetje hier, Erik en ik. Want we weten niet precies hoeveel het is. Het is ook nog niet in beeld verschenen. We hebben net wel gezien het kaartje waarop duidelijk was welke bergen we gingen berijden. Volgens mij is Matthäus nu weggereden. Door de druppels heen. Zie. Hij gaat dus alleen proberen. Wanneer hebben we hem voor het laatst gezien, Erik, in de Tour de France?
Ja, op een gegeven moment stond hij allerlaatst in het klassement. En ik denk na een week kwam hij ten val. Heeft hij moeten opgeven. Het is een jonge renner, neoprof in Italiaanse dienst. Hij wil zich even laten zien hier in zijn eigen land. In ieder geval is Bettini niet meer vertegenwoordigd in die kopgroep.
Zou hij zich terug hebben laten zakken? Maar dat is toch niet iemand die er zo afrijdt.
Nee.
Ik zei u al eerder, Bettini gaat naar Sydney. Dat wil zeggen, er gaan 6 man voor Italië en er moet daar 1 reserve zijn. Maar ja, wat een rijkdom. Ze hadden 20 man geselecteerd in Italië. Een beetje anders dan Kneteman dat gedaan heeft, de bondscoach van de Nederlanders. En degenen die daarheen gaan zijn in ieder geval Bettini en Bartoli van de Mappai-ploeg. En dan gaat Pantani erheen, Di Luca gaat erheen. En dan moet ik goed nadenken, Casagrande gaat erheen en Rebellin.
Ja, Rebellin weet ik niet.
Dat was nog een twijfelgeval.
Maar in ieder geval Pantani, ja. Die wil er zeker heen.
Ja, maar wat heeft hij daar te zoeken?
Ja, misschien niet. Ja, de namen Bartoli, Bettini, Di Luca, dat zijn allemaal renners voor eendagswedstrijden. En zeker op het parcours in Sydney kunnen ze daar veel doen. Pantani is een man die wil er gewoon zijn. Die zegt, ja, ik ben een van de beste Italiaanse renners. Ik wil gewoon op zo'n groot evenement aanwezig zijn. Daar valt wat voor te zeggen. En in Italië geven ze daar gehoor aan. Ze zeggen van Pantani heeft al zoveel betekend voor de Italiaanse wielersport. Als hij mee wil, dan nemen we hem mee.
Argiano namens Vitalicio. Hij heeft een grote versnelling staan. En zo te zien rijdt hij lekker met wind mee. En gaat hij heel hard. Dat is Van Kessel. Dat is een fris mannetje. Het is jammer dat je hem niet in grotere wedstrijden ziet. Hij heeft het wel in zich. Misschien dat hij, zoals dat zo fraai heet, een iets te licht motortje heeft. Maar hij durft in ieder geval wel. Dit is Nozal van de onze ploeg. De kopgroep dus in deze Clásica San Sebastián. 230 kilometer. En het geheim ligt op 30 kilometer voor de finish. En heet Jeeskebel. Als we er straks komen, dan zullen we zien waarom het zo'n lastig kreng is. Hij ziet eruit als een worstelaar, deze Adriano. Flinke jongen. Vitalicio is ook even uit beeld geweest natuurlijk. Reden voortreffelijk in de Giro d'Italia. En geen startbewijs in de Tour. Ja, dan hou je je renners wel fit. Voor de Vuelta en omringende wedstrijden. Maar toch wilde Vitalicio.
Good afternoon and welcome to the San Sebastian Grand Prix. Let me tell you, the conditions are wet. You can see it there on our screens. And this is a marked contrast to the heat that the riders have just had to endure in the Vuelta Burgos. You just look at the bay there, but of course it is very misleading. As I said, the conditions are very, very wet indeed. And the race has been dominated actually by a breakaway group that went away very, very early on. And they are approaching the foot slopes actually of the toughest climb on the course, and this is the one that really does sort them out. It's about 30 kilometers from the finish, and this is the Heifkabel, and the Heifkabel is a real brute of a climb. It's about 10 kilometers long, and that is where the race is normally decided. We may remember last year Francesco Casagrande was the man that blew the opposition away up that climb, and of course he came in alone. But I'm afraid today, because of the wet conditions, the race has been dominated by a group of some 14 riders that went away after 20 kilometers, and the last time check we received at the foot of the climb was that they had got an advantage over the bunch of some 2 minutes. Well, the group is beginning to split up at the front now, and the leading rider taking it on from the front from Vitalicio is Aggiano. There he is, Aggiano, making an early strike for home. Far too early, I feel, but it's better really to be at the front and set your own pace and try and stay ahead of the rest. With him, Aggiano, was Sacchiari of Seiko, Terralongo of Faso, and Rastali of Liquigas. But the leading group that went clear, let me run through the numbers for you, were Battini of Mapai, Nozal of Once, Astaloa from Mercaton Uno, De Groot from Rabobank, Sacchiari from Seiko, Mattios from Polti, Aggiano, you've already seen him here, he is in that group of course, from Vitalicio, Garatti, Lampre, Jean from Le Francais de Jeu, Tiralongo from Fassa, Rastali from Liquigas, Van Kessel from Fritz, Golbano from Jastel, and Bermeco from Relax. But it is of course now beginning to split up significantly. This is Sacchiari in his bid to try and bridge to the leader, Aggiano. And the news coming through is that Bettini actually is dropping away off the back of this group. Well, whether or not he's dropping off because he's had news that the bunch are not too far behind on the lower slopes, I don't know, but he's slipped away off the back of the group, and now these four are starting to try and go clear. Man causing the trouble is Aggiano from Vitalicio. Near the top, it's a climb actually that's quite steep, and then it levels off, and then as you turn towards the summit, the wind from the sea can really play havoc and force you to search for the gear lever and look for a lower gear. According to Danny Nelson, who is the Dutch commentator here who has ridden this race as a professional, he reckons the climb is about a 42.19. That's about the size of the gear that you need. Well, let me tell you that Lance Armstrong didn't take the start today. He wasn't feeling too well, so he's one of the big guns that was not on the start line. And Mercaton Uno, there was speculation that we were going to see Pantani riding, but he hasn't taken the start either. And Udo Boltz in the German team was 34 years of age just a couple of days ago. And I must have been very difficult to predict a winner here, because you get the feeling that these riders are, well, I would say the riders or the competitors that are going to cause the, well, start of the explosion from behind when the final selection will come. It'll be interesting to see. Now, chasing group beginning to develop behind. This is always what happens here, isn't it? And slowly riders will try to bridge the gap. This looks a bit like Adria Zola trying to get clear. But the field is fragmenting all down the hill now. They're all like a broken string of beads, we're being told, behind the leaders. And there are still a lot of big guns back there in that group. There's Echeverria, Schmiel, the world champion is there, Friel. And of course the man that won here last year, Casagrande, trying to get a hat-trick of victories. Nobody's actually won 3 San Sebastian Grand Prix. Casagrande's won it the last 2 years, and the only other man to win it twice back-to-back is Marino Lajarreta. That was back in 81 and 82, and then Lajarreta won again in 87, but nobody's actually won it 3 times in a row. Lajarreta, the undisputed king of the San Sebastian Grand Prix. Now here are the chasers, just off the pace of the leader. He's just fractionally ahead. In fact, as I speak there, he's back here, isn't he? That's Aggiano, so he's been caught. Now we have 3 riders trying to go away. Developments on this tough climb, and in the wet conditions the descent is very, very treacherous indeed. 1 or 2 riders have come to grief in other years on the descent, particularly Jesper Skibbe. The 1 year he went down and broke his collarbone. So there will be a lot of vigilance required when they go down the other side. The big field thinning down a lot from the back of this group. 230 kilometres, the race. And as I said, this is the 20th edition. 196 riders took the start from 25 different teams. The 17 first division squads and 3 second. Back in the main group is Zabel. Zabel's 330 points that he's gained so far from the opening 3 rounds. Weinstein's is second with 138, and third is Schmiel with 136. Schmiel, the defending champion for the World Cup. But these 3 anxious to try and keep the pressure on here and try and go away, dropping the rest. Looks like Secchiari here, rather keen to try and keep the switch down and force the rest to try and chase. 15 seconds the gap back to Nozal. So Onse's Nozal, he's trying to get up to the leading 3. Secchiari's just had a very good ride in the Vuelta a Bourges. He won the hotspot sprint competition, and that gives you an idea, doesn't it, of the severity of this tough test that comes after approximately 200 kilometres, so 120 miles in your legs before you get here, and then you've got to face this. And I must admit, it is very, very misty. It's about 20 degrees. It's not desperately cold, but it is very, very damp. And of course, the weather conditions that we're having to endure here on our screens is also making it extremely difficult for identifying riders, because they're not getting close enough to give us numbers, which is not exactly the best of situations. But these are the 3 now that look as though they're trying to set the pace and go away from the rest. The Faso rider, number 188 there, is Terra Longo, and now getting some support is the rider from the Onse team trying to bridge the gap, number 48. Here he is. This is Nozel. So Nozel trying to get across to the 3 to give us the quartet. But as I said earlier on, Bettini dropping away from that leading group. Now, to me, I think he's probably got something in his mind, like a tactic. Can't believe that he can be dropped by the rest, because he's too much of an experienced rider with too many very good performances to his credit. So 4 riders now as they near the closing stages of the long climb. It's about 10 kilometres long, this ascent. Here he is. Tell you what, he looks full of riding as well, doesn't he? Doesn't look as though he's going to hang around. So Onse taking it on at the front, looking strong. And this is Nozel, immediately tapping out a strong rhythm, which the rest are having to respond to. Just in at the back is Rastiali of Liquigas. It's as though the roads might be drying out a little bit here as we near the top. That would be very, very good for the leading competitors on the descent. It certainly would help them. Let's hope they're dry by the time we get to the finish, because if we're in for a sprint, we certainly don't want greasy roads as they swing into the finishing funnel in San Sebastian, that lovely resort that's famous for its fish and architecture. Super velodrome there as well in San Sebastian. Hosted the World Track Championships a couple of times, and of course San Sebastian hosted the World Road Championships just a couple of years ago when Laurent Brochard was the victor. So Onse firing riders off all the time. That was Zarabetia trying to get up to this leading group of 4. Now then, if Zarabetia could bridge the gap to the leading 4, the names are shown on the screen, and put 2 of the Onse men ahead in this group of 5, that would be a very strong position to be in. That would give them 2 cards to play in the closing stages. This is of course all speculation, but 2 riders in a leading group of 5, then you've got to start looking at them being the stronger outfit to try and clinch victory. It'd be nice if the director would give us a shot further down the mountain to see who's doing the chasing and to see just how far behind the bunch are, wouldn't it? But at the moment he's concentrating on this front group of 4. So still the same, going towards the summit. This is that little section I told you about where it levels out, and then it opens up a little bit before the wind starts to play a part off the sea, and that of course can make it even harder. Just watch those white lines as well if they're greasy, because it's very, very easy to lose adhesion and slip. See one or two riders come a nasty cropper when they slide on those centre lines. They become, as I said, exceedingly glacial. So there they are, Onse at the front. Let me just run through the winners of the previous rounds for you. You must have been following the extensive coverage on Eurosport, the finest station when it comes to top class cycling. Round one, of course, it was Zabel that swept over the line to win the Milan-San Remo. Then we went on to Flanders and a magnificent lone victory there by André Schmiel. Then the Paris-Roubaix, and it was Johan Museeuw who obliged again. Museeuw not in the race here today, not been selected for this because it is very, very hilly. Liège-Bastogne-Liège was the next stop, and it was Paolo Bettini there that was the victor. And then it was Zabel that won the Amstel Gold before we had the break. And then just 7 days ago, when we showed you the Hugh Classic from Hamburg, it was a victory there for Gabriela Bisaglia. Now then, here we are, getting towards the final meters of the climb, and it's looking as though these three are going to get some company. And Odriozola of Banesto, we've heard reports that he's taken up the chase as well, and it looks like a Banesto rider in the distance, so maybe Odriozola, he's going to join up with these leading group. Now let me tell you, Odriozola had a good Tour de France. He's a very strong climber. Banesto, one of the Spanish outfits that have so many powerful riders when it comes to the mountains. There he is. That is Odriozola. Just pan up the line. We'll see him. Yes. So he's bridged the gap to the leaders. Now then, just ahead of him are the Onse boys. Nozel of Onse, looking strong. Interesting developments, and certainly not the names that I would have thought of when I picked up the start sheet today. I've got all the stars marked out to win this, and it certainly wasn't the group we're looking at. I hadn't anticipated this at all. One of the riders who's enjoying a birthday today in the race is Belocchi. Remember Belocchi, third place finisher in the Tour de France. Great ride by him. And actually Belocchi was in hospital earlier this week complaining of pains in his chest, and x-rays revealed there was a slight crack there in one of the ribs from the crash he incurred when he fell on the Ventoux in the Tour. But he was given the all clear, and he has started today. Now there's the bunch, look. So the bunch are closing down. How interesting. But one man that's not bothered about this is the Banesto rider. Here he is, Odriozola, and he's now taking it on at the front. He's a powerful climber, as I said earlier. Now, if he could get a handsome lead by the summit, maybe, if he can stay upright on the greasy descent, he could be somebody to look out for as a possible victor at the finish. It'd be very, very popular indeed, wouldn't it? Because Spain would like to win this again. They have been out of the frame since Miguel Indurain clinched it in 1990, and that was the only classic that Indurain ever won. So that would be a very, very popular win indeed. So at the front, Odriozola of Banesto, 29 years of age, trying to take it on and drop the rest of the field. One or two other riders coming up then from the back. One or two strong men, and one or two also beginning to find it pretty hard trying to keep in contention. This is what happens, isn't it, when you're on a long, long climb such as this? It really is a backbreaker. That was Atiana at the back, and then we get a shot of one of the Festina riders just tucked in on the wheels there. That was Casas Garcia of Festina. So the front of the field once again trying to break up under the impetus of the stronger men. The men that of course have all the stamina, all that preparation in their legs, having ridden all the tours, and now we're into these single-day events. And it's amazing, isn't it, some of the teams that are starting to come out for the Olympic Games. They're starting to declare their riders. Italy have just let us know who they're going to send to Sydney for the Olympic Games. They picked a team of Bartoli, Bettini, Casagrande, De Luca and Pantani. So Pantani's going to have a crack at the Olympic Games in Sydney, eh? Rumours on the course is it's not desperately mountainous, so I can't really see how he's going to be one of the big strong men to ride there. And one of the men that's missed out on the team in the Belgian squad is Nico Matten. Very strong time trialer, Matten, but he's not made the squad for the team to go to Sydney for Belgium. In fact, the last guy to get the nod was Mark Wouters of the Rabobank team. Wouters, who won the Pro Tour last year, and the Belgian team is going to be Merckx, Maceo, Steels, Van Petegem and Wouters. So that Olympic Games road race really is going to be a hot competition to look forward to. And I think we're going to have a hot competition here to decide this as well, because one man now fractionally ahead, and this of course is the rider from Banesto, Odriozola. Here he is. Nice neat style for Odriozola. He's got the big ring in there, so this is one of the flatter sections. Gritting his teeth. They've been averaging about 40 kilometres an hour ever since the start in these wet conditions. Now, he could do with a little bit of company, I feel. Casagrande, I know, is the man that blew the opposition out of his wheel last year and stayed clear, but Odriozola could possibly do with a little help here. Pascal Hervé is another rider that is in this big group. And there is the gap, 19 seconds. Now, as I speak, it's 18, so Odriozola on his own with an advantage of 19 seconds. Very slim, isn't it? Certainly not a comfortable working gap to make you happy. This looks like Pascal Hervé on the front of the main field here. Starting to gather himself and lift the tempo and increase the chase. 15 seconds, so he wants to get on with it and try and get the others, of course, to play a vital part. Still out in front, oblivious of what is going on from behind, is the lone leader, Odriozola. Crowd a bit thin here, but I can tell you there's a very, very good crowd at the finish, waiting to see who is going to win this. I'm getting information down there all the time from the climb. It's being fed down, but I'm just wondering what kind of pictures we're going to get on the descent, because the mist is hanging there very, very thick in places as well, so we might just lose pictures at times, which will be a bit frustrating as we're trying to watch the closing stages unfold of this San Sebastian Grand Prix. That is Rebellin in the group, so Rebellin knows what it's like to give the victory salute in this event. There's Hervé. Rebellin was the man that won this event and then went on to win the Grand Prix Zurich, so he won the two classics back-to-back some 3 years ago, so he's a strong man and one of the riders to possibly emerge as a victor here. Knows the run-in very, very well. Here we are on the climb. 1 kilometre to go to the summit. Now, the man that's going to be able to find the safest line is definitely the leader, Odriozola. Here he is, turning the pedals well, isn't he? There's the wind just starting to lift the banner. I was telling you, wasn't I, in the closing stages, it would start to blow a bit, particularly where it's exposed. Now, here's the residue of the group coming through. It's quite a size, isn't it? So, ingredients beginning to look as though we could end up with a bunch sprint here. It was about 16 seconds at the summit, so it's not a very big lead. One or two other riders in there. Just caught a glimpse of Dekker in that group. Well, what a season he's having. Dekker, former Dutch champion. So you can never discount him, can you? If he might just try and look for a lone bid for victory to surprise the rest. Here come the next group, but they are all over the place now. The mountain has totally blown the field apart. The Heitkabel, the famous climb, 455 metres, and coming, as I say, the summit after just over 200 kilometres. So it really is a backbreaker, and that is the time to try and launch the attack. Just looking through the book before we came on air at some of the places that some of the British riders have achieved in these classics, and of course we've got the great classic victories by Tom Simpson, the Milan-San Remo, Gira de Lombardy and the Tour de Flanders, but one or two of our other riders have had some superb places as well. And Brian Robinson, way back in 57, was third in the Milan-San Remo. Barry Hoban, of course, the man that won all the stages in the Tour de France, he was third in the Paris-Roubaix in 72. And let's not forget Malcolm Elliott, who placed third in the Amstel Gold. But as the last group now comes to the summit of the climb, the man I didn't mention was Graham Jones of Great Britain. Graham Jones actually finished second in this San Sebastian Grand Prix the first year it was held, when Marino Lajarreta was the victor. And it was really good to see Graham Jones getting a mention in the cycling magazine this week, because he's one of our unsung heroes who also finished 20th in the Tour de France. So we've had some magnificent riders over the years. Now I'm just waiting to see what's going on lower down the climb when the director switches to the hairpin descent. As I said, it's very, very misty, but it will be good to see whether Odriozola is still ahead or whether anybody's bridged the gap to him. But at the moment, it's beginning to look as though we could have quite a sizable group contesting the finish. Can't imagine for a moment that Odriozola is going to stay ahead. 2:36, this rider off the back looks like one of the Polti men. So let me tell you that the World Cup action next week will be in Zurich, and it will be covered here on Eurosport. Zurich Grand Prix, they will be showing I think it's 2 hours coverage of that, and that's the third World Cup that takes place in August. Then there will be a break before the action resumes in October with the traditional Paris Tours, and the competition will finally conclude with the Giro de Lombardy. Those will be the last 2 rounds. It gives you a bit of an idea, doesn't it, of the height and the steepness of this climb, and the mist that's settling on the top of the mountains. But I can tell you that the weather down in San Sebastian is actually clearing, and it really is a marvellous area. I've raced there once or twice in my days as a pro. Some lovely beaches, and as I was saying a little earlier, wonderful fish food. Well, there we are, right on cue. The finishing straight, and it looks absolutely bone dry. There's the situation for the leading 5 in the competition. You can see the handsome lead that Zabel has got, and just behind Veensteins we've got Schmiel, 2 points separating those two. So that's going to be quite a competition, isn't it? Those 2 riders are in that group that are chasing these leaders down, and Odriozola has now got company, and that rider from Once looked a little bit like Zarabaitia to me. Looked very much like Zarabaitia has bridged the gap to Odriozola. Just wait until I can get a slightly better view of the rider from Once, but it definitely looked like him. The map just confirming our position in the race in location to the finish, and they're inside 25 k's to go, and they're on that greasy descent, the one that I said needs a lot of vigilance. So, waiting to see, but the Once rider is having a real problem here, isn't he? Trying to stay on terms, or sorry, the Banesto rider, I should say, is having a great deal of trouble to stay on terms with the Once rider, who, well, he's probably showing, it is Zarabaitia, so he's probably showing a lot more bravery here. He's gone ahead, what would that be, about 50 metres advantage. So obviously Odriozola at the back here is clearly unhappy, and he's finding the descent very, very tricky indeed. But Zarabaitia, he doesn't need a second invitation. Imagine he could sniff a victory. He is actually from the Basque region, so that would be an incredibly popular victory if he could win. You know, for all you cycling anoraks, a little bit like myself, if you remember a long, long time ago, back in 1994, Zarabaitia actually was second in the Tour of Spain to Tony Rominger. So he might be a little bit long in the tooth now at 30 years of age, but that's a fine performance that he's got on his CV. And let me just tell you also that after he finished second in that Tour of Spain, that particular winter he had a very, very bad crash on a section of motorway approaching Bilbao, and went straight through the windscreen. And ever since that crash, he never ever got back to the kind of form that we would have associated with a rider of the class that can finish second in a major tour. 25 k's to go for the chasers. You can see how cautiously they are taking these twists and turns on the descent. Still quite a lot of flat to go after the final exit from the tree-lined drop after the climb, so they don't seem too far behind Zarabetia, do they? And it's looking now to me as though Odriozola is falling back to the group. I can't see any sign of him here. Yet another left-hander, and he's got the road to himself. So this man with the head of the race, the question is now, can he stay ahead? Quite a strong group behind, trying to get on terms. Odriozola still lying second, but you can see that the man that he was with has absolutely flown away and left him. Zarabetia, the leader. And I don't think it's going to be too long now then before Odriozola is going to be absorbed by this chasing group. A lot to play for, and it's all going to be decided definitely in the final 20 kilometres, which is about 12.5 miles. Yet another left-hander. So you can see the race is still finely poised as we are approaching the closing stages towards San Sebastian. San Sebastian Grand Prix, the screen tells you 20 kilometres to go, 12.5 miles. Well, my apologies, because I thought Odriozola had been caught by the chasing group, but far from it. We have this tandem of riders now with the head of the race, Odriozola from Banesto, and the man that he's got with him is Zarabetia. So, two Spanish riders hoping to get a victory here. It certainly would be a popular one, wouldn't it? Kelme on the front of the chasing group, and at the moment nobody too eager to try and close that gap down. Looks as though the roads are starting to dry out a little bit here. 19 seconds the advantage for the two. So the dry roads will certainly help the riders, but of course they'll be able to ride quicker, and that will no doubt encourage the chasing group to bridge the gap to the leaders. We'll have to see. They're still ahead, aren't they? Now it's the turn of Euskaltel coming through, so all the Spanish teams here are playing their cards, aren't they? Euskaltel are actually second at the moment in the second division. Just to repeat my earlier comments, 17 first division teams and 3 from the second division took the start this morning in the San Sebastian Grand Prix. And let me just tell you that Lance Armstrong, who I said hadn't taken the start, I've actually been told that it was some, I think he had some fish which upset his stomach, and that's why he was not able to ride in the San Sebastian Grand Prix, which he's said is all part of his build-up ready for the Olympic Games, and he's targeted there the individual time trial. That's the event he wants to win. And he's also gone on record as saying that if he could win the gold medal in the Olympic Games, the kudos that he would enjoy would far outweigh that he gets from winning the Tour de France. So it just shows, doesn't it, the pulling power of a gold medal in the Olympic Games. Coming down all the time, isn't it now? 16 seconds. Armstrong and Ulrich likely to be, I would think, two of the big strong contenders for that time trial in Sydney. And Chris Boardman for Great Britain, and Miller. And news on Chris Boardman, I spoke to him this week, and he was in quite a good mood. He said that he's back to good form, and he's dismissed the illness he had that sidelined him from the Tour de France. And his racing season actually starts, the closing part of his racing season this season, in Switzerland, when he rides a Tour of Time Trial with Jens Voigt. That will be the next competition for Boardman, riding a Tour of Time Trial tomorrow in Switzerland with Jens Voigt. And Voigt, well, he could be on the move as well. He's the only non-telecom rider on the German team in the Olympic Games, and Voigt is seriously considering a transfer to telecom, or he's even, I think, been having talks with US Postal. Now this looks like Dekker coming to the front. Erik Dekker, former Dutch champion, on the front of the chasing group, but the man that's still at the head here for Once and looking good is Zarabetia. And Zarabetia and Odriozola still holding this slender advantage, but surely the chasing group must be limiting the gains. I cannot believe that they are going to stay out in front. As so often happens as they get nearer and nearer to the finish. We've seen it so many times in the Tour de France. The tempo lifts all the time from the chasers, and we've even seen riders, haven't we, caught with as little as, what, 50, 60 metres to go to the line. Always a sad sight after they've given their all, but they're not bothered about it. They're still trying to stay out in front, but for how much longer? Now then, Lamprey on the attack, trying to go clear. It's a good cross-representation of teams here, isn't it? There's Lamprey, Vitalicio, Festina are also there. I've caught a glimpse of 2 or 3 riders from the Fassa Bortolo team. They've got such a strong squad. In fact, the Fassa rider looks a little bit like that tough competitor Rusas. There's once again a lull in the action. 2 from Festina also near the head of that group. Just pull back with the long shot. We'll see what the gap is. Well, it's not great, is it? There it is. Looks like a rider has jumped clear and trying to get across. Now, if 1 or 2 riders could bridge, then that would give them an opportunity of staying away. A little bit of extra added strength for the work as they relay each other. Well, this is so often what happens, isn't it, from behind. Riders keep jumping clear, one after the other, and then the group splits, then they link up again. And it is breaking up quite considerably, isn't it? Impossible to recognise any riders from that height. I do apologise, but here we are. Oh, it's Galdiano. So one of the Galdiano brothers now on the attack. So Spain now filling the first 3 places in the race at this stage. So they really have got the bit between them, haven't they? That's Igor Galdiano. He was second actually in the Tour of Spain last year. No doubt he'll be licking his lips at the thought of his home tour, which is due to start at the end of the month, and there will be comprehensive coverage of that tour the whole 3 weeks. 1 or 2 riders will be using that as their final preparation for Sydney. Ulrich is not a competitor in this event today, but Ulrich is going to be riding in the Vuelta, and Ulrich will be, I understand, giving support for other riders in the team and using it as part of his preparation, so he's not going to be the leader of that squad. Now that's Dekker on the front. That workman-like style of the Dutchman. He's had a magnificent season, hasn't he, Dekker? 3 stage victories in the Tour de France. Also, way back, I can remember, in the Olympics in '92 in Barcelona, the great year for Great Britain, of course, when Chris Borba won the gold on the track. Dekker was second in the road race, clinched a silver medal for that position, and it does look like Dekker at the back of this group. His lead, or their lead, is only a few metres. Now it swells out to 4. And just joining him at the back there is Fletcher from the Fuenlabrada team. That's one of the 2nd division squads here in this race. Meanwhile, the 2 still ahead. And it's getting on, isn't it? About 15 kilometres to go. And the roads are definitely drying out. 1 or 2 other strong riders in that group behind as well. Is the world champion for one. He's there, Oscar Freire. Sensational victory when Freire clinched that world title last year in Verona. A bit of a topsy-turvy time there, hasn't he, since he put the rainbow jersey on. Injury, of course, has been the problem for him, but he's also had some very good places indeed. It was Dekker in that group, and it looks as though we have now 5 riders trying to go away to bridge to the leaders. Now then, is this going to be the key move? Galdiano is in this group. At the back we've got Fletcher. And there we are, the two have been caught. The junction has been made. An immediate attack here by Kofidis. Just a bit, this looks a little bit like David Miller to me, trying to go away. So, Kofidis on the attack immediately. Now then, this is what happens. Immediately one group gets caught, there is a reaction, and riders try to go away. Finest form of defence is attack when the legs are bursting and the junction is made. That's the time to go. Hit them when it hurts. So Kofidis now trying to lift the tempo. Hasn't quite got away. They haven't surrendered behind. He's got about 30 to 40 metres. In fact, it looks like Matten. I thought it was Miller from the distance, but it looks like Nico Matten to me. So, Nico Matten of Kofidis, he's got something to prove. He's just been overlooked by the Belgian team. He was hoping to get the nod for the final place, but they haven't picked him. They picked Mark Wouters instead. Now then, if Matten could go away and win, that would be one in the eye for the Belgian selectors for the Sydney Olympics, wouldn't it? And Matten is a very strong time trialer. So if he could get the gap and put his head down, he won't mind being on his own, because that's the style he likes. But it doesn't look as though he's going to get away. Here they are, they're coming back to him. There's still a lot of riding in the legs of the chasers. Matten just fractionally ahead, but a lot of class here in this group as they keep chasing him down. The two that have been caught are there as well, so they haven't got straight through the back. Odriozola and Zarabetia, they're in that group. Matten still ahead. What would he be pegged at? If we can just get a shot further back, we might just be able to work it out. Oh, it's good. It's quite good, this. I thought he'd been caught. No, he hasn't. So Nico Matten now really going for it. Well, has he got the power and strength to achieve this victory here in San Sebastian? Spinning that gear well. High leg speed. He's established the gap. Now then, can he capitalise on it? That's some terrific riders, haven't they? Their enigmatic leader, that is Luc van den Broek. He's been in hospital recently. And who knows where he's going to go. He's been trying to secure a contract for about £1 million. He was talking to the new Domo outfit, but I think those talks have fallen through. And of course David Miller rides for the same team as Nico Matten, and David Miller, the man that was in that yellow jersey in the Tour de France, we will never forget it. It was absolutely marvellous. He became the 4th British rider ever to wear yellow. Now it's the old tactics here, isn't it? One goes down the road. Who's going to chase? I'm not going to chase. If I do, that could take the sting out of my legs for the closing sprint. Meanwhile, the man that capitalises on it is Matten. He's not waiting for a second invitation. He's off down the road. Now, is this going to be the key move? I must admit, early on when I saw that leading group, I know there wasn't too many big riders in it, apart from, say, Bettini, who fell back, or he dropped back because he was deciding to have a go a little bit later on. I was just wondering, with the conditions, if they were going to be the front runners at the finish. But as so often happens, the big guns chase them down on the climb, and now, of course, it's given us this situation in the closing stages. How many are in this group here? 8 in our shot. Matten ahead, so that's 9 we're looking at. Looks like Schmiel is in that group there. We know Decker's in there. Galdiano's also in there. Just wondering if is that the World Champions jersey at the back, Ferreira. There's still a lot of big guns here. Far from decided. And in that group as well is Rumsas. So anybody could still win, but this man, Matten, has got away, and there's about just over 10 kilometres to... In fact, there it is, 10 kilometres to go. Right on cue, and Nico Matten is the man that's taking the race away from those chasers. Certainly would be a magnificent victory, wouldn't it, for Kofidis? And the rest, well, they're playing at track tactics. They're easing up, and the rest of the main field, thank you very much, they're coming up. And it looks as though we're going to have about 35, 40 riders here chasing down Nico Matten. Now, Andre Schmiel trying to go through. There's Decker. Galdiano is also there. So it's going to be a dramatic finish. There's Schmiel. Join us again after this break. Welcome back to the closing stages of the San Sebastian Grand Prix, and still a lot to play for with this leading group. There's Nico Matten, but I don't think his escape is going to last much longer, because the group behind are really boring down on him now. And let me just give you one or two of the names in this group that are chasing. There's one, Decker, there's Schmiel on the far side. Galdiano is also here. I can tell you that the world champion has made it across to this group as well. That's Freire. Bettini is also in this group, so there's a lot of big stars. And I've been told that Weinsteins is also in the group that is coming up. Nico Matten trying like fury now, but look at Schmiel. He really is a warrior, 37 years of age warrior, the warrior from Belgium, trying to get clear the way he did in the closing stages in the Tour of Flanders, but they're wise to it, the rest of the riders. They're not going to let him go, and now he's been absorbed back in the group. And here they are. Now, looks as though they're easing back again. This will play, of course, into the hands of the leader. So Matten will capitalise on this if he can only stay away. That is what we are waiting to see now. Kenny stay clear. Into the bridge. And there's quite a few of these tunnels actually in the outskirts of San Sebastian. We're about 25 kilometers from the French border here. There's the leader. He's got 8 kilometers to go. Well, it's a tall order, isn't it? I don't think he's going to do it. No, 8 Ks, he's never going to stop out in front. The thing is, once he's brought back, then we're going to have to start to consider who are the stronger finishers in that group coming up. Well, we know Schmiel can finish well. We also know that Freire can finish well, the world champion. And then, of course, you've got Weinsteins, who won the Tour of... or Paris-Brussels, I should say, last year. A very, very long semi-classic that. It doesn't get a World Cup rating of an event. I don't know why, because it's a very, very good event indeed. He won that, so he's a strong finisher. But Matten's still out in front. He's really gritting his teeth. He's not surrendering the lead, is he? He's determined to try and stay away. Must be about 6.5 kilometers to go now, I would think. Festina are there as well. That looks like Klinger to me from Festina. David Klinger near the front of the field. 7 Ks to go. He's ticking them off one by one, isn't he? But it must be awful to be just out dangling in front with such a big prize down the road, wondering if you can stave off the attacks from the group behind. Calme now coming through. The move immediately checked out by Fassa. Now, who is going to be next to go? Looks like Lampre coming through. They know each other so well. It is a chess on wheels scenario, this. As one rider goes, the move is checked out by the next. So it looks like Oscar Kamenzin to me. Kamenzin, I think that was Kamenzin, former world champion, winner of the Tour of Switzerland this year. Now, Fassa Bartolo coming through. So, Fassa Bartolo on the front now, trying to lift the tempo all the time. Good team they've got. They've got Bellet, Konishev, Frigo, Gustov, Vincato, Perron, Rumsas. Playing the old 1-2. Nico Matten's escape has evaporated. Now, Fassa Bartolo were the first team to bridge. Now then, who's going to be the next one to attack? It looks like Fassa on the attack again. Oh, they really have got a game plan here. They're trying to get somebody down the road. They clearly want a victory. It's checked out by Banesto. Now then, Fassa Bartolo on the front. Banesto checking the move out. The roads are dry, I'm pleased to say, which is going to give us a really superb finish. The group has split again. As I speak, they come back together. So, 6 kilometers to go. So just over 3 miles of racing left to decide this, the San Sebastian Grand Prix. The winner gets 100 points in this World Cup competition. 70 for second, 50 for third, 40 for fourth, and so on. This looks like David Klinger on the front to me, with 3 kilometres to go, just 5 kilometres of racing left. Now then, they watch each other. This is playing into the hands of the sprinters all the time. Every time they ease back, the sprinters, of course, will capitalise on it. Again, the field react. Cameron Zindi sitting up there, second wheel, strong legs, Cameron Zind, obviously. But they're not letting him go. Remember when he won that world title on the Valkenburg course in wet conditions in Holland? It was a magnificent ride. Jumped away halfway around the closing lap and held off all the chasers to score the greatest victory of his life. Again, Belli, looks like Belli to me here now having a go. Vladimir Belli from Fassa Bortolo. So Belli comes to the front. They got so many cards to play in the closing stages. Tempo confirmed, 41 kilometres an hour, so it's just over the 25 miles an hour mark. And remember, after all the kilometres they've been racing, 230 now almost in the legs. Move checked out again. They're all back together. Vitalizio now trying to go away. Well, it's so difficult to try and predict a winner here, isn't it, in this race? Still anybody's. The locals getting a glimpse here of the world cycling stars. Onse on the front. Attack by Onse. Reaction immediately on the right by Euskaltel. Two Spanish teams leading here now. Looks like Schmiel coming through, not wearing that crash hat that we always recognise him with the coloured stripe on. Schmiel sitting second wheel. Ooh. The problem here at the head of the field, one of the riders putting his hand up. I don't know if he got a puncture or a mechanical problem. If he has, that's desperately hard luck, because we're only, what, about 3 Ks to go. Festina on the attack again here. Looks like David Klinger to me having another go. That's the time to go in the closing stages, isn't it? Looks like Klinger's the man that's going away with 3 Ks to go. Now then, has he got the power? He's certainly established a small gap here. He's doing a Decker-style attack, isn't he? But the field look as though they've got too much riding in the legs. That's about 25 metres the advantage. They're not going to let him go. I think there's 1 or 2 others here fancier the chances. Caught a glimpse of the world champions jersey in that group. He's there. Oscar Freire, man who finished third in the Milan San Remo. He's in that group. Looks back. I don't think he's going to continue with this. Approaching the 2-kilometre banner. Tenaciously he hangs on to this lead, but it is very, very small and coming down as the field fan out from the left. 2 Ks to go. Just over 2 minutes of racing to decide this, and they're all back together again. So 1 or 2 riders again to tell you about in this group. Schmiel, Freire, the world champion. Weinsteins is there, Bettini's in this group. Decker's there. Here comes Decker. I can't believe this. Decker's having a go. Well, this is his trademark now, isn't it, Decker? 3-stage victories in the Tour de France. It's just sensational stuff. The field must know his move, and they've let him go. Well, I don't think they can do anything about it, and Decker's gone. Decker has gone. This is unbelievable stuff. When you think back to the Paris-Nice earlier in the year, he crashed and broke his elbow. He recovered from that. He rode in the Tour of Sweden, where he won a stage and I think he won the time trial as well. But then, of course, he won the most aggressive rider prize in the Tour de France and 3-stage victories. And Decker's gone. Well, inside a kilometre to go. Is the Dutchman now going to bolt on this classic victory to the 3 stages he's had in the Tour? This is sensational stuff. He looks under the arm. He's so strong, Dekker. Very, very good time trialer. He's represented his country in the Olympic Games for the time trial discipline. And once he's got the gap, it's just like a time trial to him. He can sniff victory, and I think they've had it. I can't see them catching him. It's unbelievable stuff. It's just sensational, isn't it? Dekker has gone, and he looks as though he's going to clinch this classic. But I can't see if he's still ahead because the flag's in the way. Yes, he is. Lift the flag out of the way, please. There he is, Dekker. What's the gap going to be? Well, I think it's going to be enough. He will turn into the finishing funnel here. He's gritting his teeth. He's forward on the peak of the saddle, but look at the gap he's established. This is going to be a marvellous victory for the rider from Rabobank. It is going to be Dekker. Dekker gives the salute, which he has now become accustomed to win the San Sebastian Grand Prix. Now, what about the sprint for second? This is going to be an incredibly tight sprint on the line. Who's got that? Oh, that was definitely difficult to call. Looked like Veensteins was in the hunt there for second, and Schmiel. I think I caught a glimpse of Bettini as well, but we'll need a photo to sort that one out. It was very, very close for second. 5 hours, 15 minutes, of racing in pretty dreary conditions, but at long last, I'm pleased to say that the finishing straight did dry out and enable us to have a magnificent grandstand finish here for the San Sebastian Grand Prix. But what a finish. Dekker adds to the 3-stage victories in the Tour de France. The classic here in round 7 of the World Cup, the classic San Sebastian. He is having a season to end all seasons. As we now get an aerial shot here of San Sebastian. And we've seen some superb finishes in this race. Casagrande, the man that has escaped off the climb before coming in on his own, but this time the end belonged to Dekker. So here are the riders at the head of the main field, coming in now, being led by Telecom, and you see Zabel, he's there. Zabel will be conscious of still trying to pick up a few more points because they all count and the points go all the way down to 25, and he'll be anxious to add a little bit more to that tally of his. He started the day with 330, and it looked like Zabel got that to me, so he will have collected a few more. So, what a race, and the closing stages belong to the tough bike rider from Holland, Dekker. That's his 9th victory of the season, and he's away to represent his country in the Olympic Games in Sydney. And tell you what, he'd be a good bet to put money on. I think he could be one of the favourites, certainly a rider that you've got to consider, because he's so strong and powerful. As we get an opportunity to see him coming up to the line, and as I said to you in the commentary, as he did hit the line, the traditional victory salute for him. I wonder if he rehearses this because he's getting very accustomed to it. He's doing it all the time, isn't he? Just to repeat, 3-stage victories in the Tour de France, and now he wins the classic San Sebastian. Doesn't he look pleased? Just look at that. 100 points he collects in the World Cup competition with 3 more rounds to go. There's the result confirmed. So Veensteins was in that thrilling sprint for second, but it was Schmiel that got the better of him. So Dekker wins, Schmiel second, Veensteins third, and Bettini fourth, and Freire, the world champion, was fifth. San Sebastian Grand Prix, we get an opportunity to look once again at the man who is the happiest man here in San Sebastian, and of course that is Eric Dekker, coming in to take his classic and 100 points in the World Cup. He can look back and see the first sprint behind to see who else is going to pick up the points, and of course it was Schmiel, Veensteins, Bettini and Freire. Well, I can tell you actually that Zabel, the leader in the World Cup, finished outside the top 25, so he hasn't won any more points to add to the 330 he started with today. Schmiel has now got 206, and Schmiel has jumped over Veensteins, who started the competition second today, and Bettini is now lying in third spot. So the situation is Zabel leads 3:30, Schmiel second 2:06, Veensteins is third with 188, and Bettini is fourth with 160 points. 3 more rounds then of the World Cup to take place. There is the Grand Prix Zurich, the Paris Tours, and then the Giro de Lombardy. So a lot to look forward to, and let me tell you, cycling will be carrying on there with the Bukal, and from me, Hugh Porter, it's goodbye.